There you go.
Okay, so yes, so this is, we are live here. This is the Woman Agenda. We have Heather Blackmon. Have I said it right?
Blackmon. Really, it's easier
Blackmon.
than it looks.
Heather Blackmon with us, who is a very, very experienced, talented yoga instructor who does yoga and it teaches people, has a yoga classes. So how are you today, Heather? Thank you for coming on.
Doing really well. Just back about 30 minutes ago from teaching a class. So good timing.
Wow. Yeah, and I've seen it. I've seen the link. When we type in your name, it comes up with how people can book in the yoga classes, how much you charge, a full description on there on the website. We will put that in on the podcast, on the video description, and on the podcast, which for anyone who's watching us after it's recorded uploaded on Apple Podcasts. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere, Buzzsprout, Geo, and all where podcasts can be found on the Woman Agenda. And the link will be on there as well, on the description of the audio podcast. So tell us about why you went into yoga and how long has it been?
Yeah, so I have a background in lots of different movement practices. So as a kid, I was a dancer. That's a little bit harder to keep going when you're an adult, although it's gotten much easier since I was that age. I then got more into running and triathlon. I was actually a coach for endurance athletes for about a decade. And then as my interests shifted, it just became something that I kind of moved away from coaching in that space. And naturally, I just found my way to yoga. And I think the dance background, I think, has a lot of application to that because you're still finding that creative movement. And so after, I think, practicing actually for quite a while, I think I was practicing for about 8 to 10 years before I decided that it might be fun to just go to a teacher training. I honestly didn't really have a lot of intention of teaching. I wanted to go to kind of deepen my practice. I had a break between my kind of day job roles. And I thought this is a good time to go away for a couple of weeks and learn. So I actually was certified I guess it was just about a year and a half ago. I went down to Peru, was able to get certified in the jungles of Peru, which is a very fun and unique place to go through that, and started teaching literally 2 weeks after getting certified. So after saying I didn't think I wanted to, it didn't take kind of very long during training to go, you know what, I actually want to be able to share this with more people. It's an interesting way for me to combine some of my practice from endurance coaching. I also have a personal training certification and nutrition. So it's kind of like putting all those different things together to be able to then create a kind of yoga focused practice that I can share with others.
Wow. that is really, really good. I don't do yoga myself. Obviously, I do the Tai Chi and that kind of stuff. But obviously, which is similar kind of a meditation. It helps you.
Yeah.
But I think it's important in everyday walk of life to do some kind of a meditation, something which helps the body, helps the mind. It helps you totally. And if you're having any stress as well, it helps you to avoid stress and stuff on there. And so you have these yoga classes. So how long have you had these classes for? And
Yeah, so I completed my yoga certification in 2021. So like I said, about a little over or a little under probably a year and a half ago. I started teaching pretty immediately. My classes are typically definitely include breath work. That's something that I personally enjoy. And just like you were talking about kind of that stress relief side of it, your breath, it has so much connection to be able to help kind of down regulate, bring yourself back in. So my classes typically, I think, always start with breath work. My movement styles very similar to vinyasa. I'll typically also maybe pull in some other movement to kind of meld with that, and also do sound healing, or sound baths. So I was trained in that just I believe it was last August. I went to a kind of a weekend long workshop to really learn around it. My Probably favorite sound instrument is the gong. So I do have a gong, although I'd love a bigger gong. These things all are very expensive, but they're super powerful, really
Yeah.
using those vibrations to help kind of interact with your own body. And so a lot of my classes will end with at least a small bit of sound bath. And then I also host more focused sound bath workshops that combine some movement practices with more of the sound as well.
Wow, that is really, really good. On that, when people used to talk about yoga, people used to think,
Mhm.
okay, this is a religion thing, or this is a thing which has got to do with Indians because it's yoga, it's got to do with Hinduism, but that's
Mhm.
not actually the case. That's not to do with it. Yoga isn't to do with that. It's got to do with the meditation. For people, I think some people get the wrong end of the stick when they think it's got to do with Hinduism or Indians. It's not it's nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the helping you mentally, physically. Is yoga, it's a meditation which we've seen everybody's been doing it, and since now there's a yoga day as well in the world. Every year we celebrate yoga. Everybody does
Mhm.
it on there, and it's now becoming even more and more famous, and more people are doing it. Uh, and do you think it's spreading more awareness about yoga, and that it's not an Asian thing? It's a global thing. It should be.
Well, I do think it has roots in, South Asia and Indian cultures. I think there is a
Yeah,
lot of connection from that. But like you said, it's not a specifically religious practice at all. I
it's
think it
not.
melds really nicely with a lot of different belief systems. Just kind of, with as
Yeah,
with a lot of things, I think take the parts that are meaningful to you and kind of, you can leave the rest. What I really like
yeah,
about it is a mix of different types of practices, right? You have kind of the breath awareness and breath work aspect of it. You have asana, which is the movement, which is the piece I think most people in the West are most familiar with, right? When you think about going to a yoga class, quite often they're
yeah,
thinking about more of a movement and an exercise. But there are
yeah,
so many different styles. I also teach yin and restorative quite regularly. And restorative, there's very little movement, right? We're really just moving into
yeah,
postures, using poses, or I'm sorry, props that are supporting us. And it's less about finding movement and more about finding rest. And so there's this a wide range of things that I think you get to choose from and finding what kind of works with your body. I work with a lot of athletes just based on my history, and I do a lot of athletic exercise myself. And I like to tell them, maybe you want the slower classes and the restorative or the yin or those different things that aren't what typically comes to mind when you think of yoga classes. So lots of different options, lots of different ways to kind of fit it into your lifestyle, I think is a good way to say it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is, and it's something. I guess to get the benefits of yoga is something which you need to do on a regular basis, like a everyday kind of a.
And it doesn't need to be every day, but I think consistency is
Yeah,
extremely important. So if it's something you go to one class every, 3 months, I don't think that it will give you as much benefit as if you
hmm,
take yoga, once or twice a week and kind of work it into your typical routine. But I don't think you have to go quite as dramatic as daily to get benefits. I tend
yeah,
to practice daily because it's something I've been doing for quite a while now. But that's
yeah,
my personal choice. Many people that I work with practice twice a week or even once a
yeah,
week. And I think you can still get a ton of benefits, both mental and physical, on that foundation. And so it's just finding that cadence or that frequency that kind of works for you and trying to fit that into your schedule.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the people who come in your classes, are they more women, or do you think is it around about a balance, around about similar men and women?
Yeah, it totally depends on the class, but a lot of times it isn't a good mix of men and
Yeah,
women. Really, so I don't think there's any gender specificity
no,
on this. Like everybody can really benefit from it, and I will
yeah,
get people
exactly.
who come into class who have never tried yoga in their entire life, and I'll get people who have been practicing for decades, much longer than me.
Yeah.
We'll get people from teenagers all the way to, I have a guy in his 70s that comes to one of my classes very regularly.
Wow.
And so it's one of
Great.
those practices you get to adapt, right? It kind of fits you where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the website, which is mindbodyonline.com,
Mhm.
is this your website?
Oh no, Mindbody is a website a lot of times that people will book on. So that's quite
Okay.
common in a lot of the fitness space. So not even just yoga, you'll see it for a lot of different fitness studios and things like that. So my website is fitaspire.com. So FITASPIRE. That
Okay.
one is my website where you'll learn a lot about kind of my work as a yoga and wellness teacher. I do share some practices on YouTube, a lot of stuff in person. And I do also do private yoga, both for groups and individuals in person and online. So lots of different options that you can find. There's also a couple of free resources for any of your viewers or listeners that are interested that you'll find on the website. One of those
Yeah.
is to help you to build that consistent yoga practice we were talking about. It doesn't have to be daily, but kind of a guide that walks you through what could that look like. And really gives you some tips around, deciding what that frequency should be. How do you build it into your schedule? What do you need to get started? Those types of things. And then also yoga for runners. So as somebody who runs myself and used to be an endurance athlete, I think this is one of those things that can be so helpful for people who are running. There's a lot of you're working really hard to build up strength, and it's a very repetitive activity. And so complementing it with yoga is a wonderful way to kind of round out your running and help to, elongate some of those muscles that maybe get a little bit more shortened through the activity. So the balance there, and it can actually
Yeah.
help to improve your performance. So kind of both ends of the spectrum, no matter which way you're at. Some great guides to kind of walk you through how to help you.
Absolutely, because people who are like cyclists or
Mhm.
other sports people, men and women, I guess yoga would be a very beneficial thing for them as well. It would
Yeah.
help them in their daily routine.
Yeah,
Um,
completely. Like I said, I enjoy mountain biking as well now. I run, I mountain bike, I snowboard. So I'm super active myself. And so I think that's one of the ways that I found yoga to be super beneficial as I was kind of exploring it in my own life. And again, using that balance can be so helpful because again, these are repetitive motions, and but that's okay as long as we then balance them out, help you to find what types of yoga classes are going to add that balance to your life, and just finding a way to fit it into your schedule. A lot of people who are really active like that, you already have lots of different things you have to get throughout the week, right? Especially in the triathlon world, you're already fitting in 3 sports. Well, fitting in one more thing can feel a little bit challenging. And so just learning some ways to fit it in. Doesn't have to be hour-long classes. You can get a lot of benefit out of 10 minutes of yoga, and be able to fit that into your life a little easier.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we will put the link of your website, obviously, on the
Mhm.
podcast, the video version, and also under the description of the audio version podcast. It'll be there, so everyone you'll be able to see the link and follow the link onto Heather's website. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, there's no like age barrier. I mean, kids are doing it, adults are
Absolutely.
doing it. Indian Prime Minister, PM Narendra Modi, he does yoga every single day in the morning,
Oh, amazing.
and he was the main person who said to um, I don't know if it was the UN, or he said that we need to make yoga into a global thing. We need to make it into like a special day to get more people into yoga. And then they approved that, and then obviously they sanctioned it to make it a yoga day, a global thing. And when you see on the yoga day, you see so many millions of people doing it, following it now.
Hmm.
It's becoming a global thing, a massive thing, and because people are for different reasons. They're having their own stress situation going
Yeah.
on. And obviously COVID-19 still around as well. That's still not gone. It's still with us, and it may stay with us, to be honest. So that would obviously avoid a lot of stressful situations. And obviously there's a lot of and you'll know about this as well, that there's a lot of obviously health benefits to yoga as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The list is quite long.
It's a very long list.
Yeah. And I think as well, because remember, it's not just the movement side, right? So if you think about breath work and the impact that that can have on anxiety and stress and just being able to bring that down. And that's with just sitting and focusing on different breath techniques that have been around for thousands of years, right? That we get the benefit to have learned to really help to balance things out. You know, box breath is one of those that I love to teach in my classes, which is really just thinking about taking an inhale for, let's say 4 counts, holding it for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and holding it for 4 counts, right? So you're almost drawing a box with your breath. It's very balanced. And so that helps to bring that balanced sense of well-being into the way that your body responds. And I think a lot of people have experienced breath work without maybe even knowing it, right? When you're really stressed, if you take a really deep breath and just like let it go, even that can help change your mood. So lots of different ways that that kind of helps to present and to help with kind of mental stress. And then movement wise, I mean, so many different things, particularly depending on what type of yoga you're practicing. We were talking about athletes, right? And so there's yin yoga that it holds a pose for a really long period of time, and it's intended to really help with the fascia. And so you're helping to kind of get a little bit deeper into the body and allow it to release. Or if you think about more of a vinyasa style where you're moving, you're getting some cardiovascular benefits depending on the speed. You're probably getting some strength benefits. Holding poses for a little bit longer definitely takes a little bit of strength. So many different things, really depending on what aspect of yoga that you are practicing. But the list is just extremely, extremely long. So, lots of ways that you can benefit. It's definitely one of those things as well that has a very small incidence of injury. So I feel like there's an over focus on this sometimes, where people are like, oh, you could get injured. Well, you can get injured doing anything, including walking, but you're probably not going to. Like the incidence of injury in yoga, extremely small. There's always a risk, and no matter what you're doing. So it's a great way to get moving with that very low incidence of injury. And so you can take those benefits much easier that way.
Yeah, exactly. You can get injured while you're picking your weight training.
Totally.
And I've back in the days when I was picking up a massive weight and like that, and I did it a bit too much before I was going to work, and I did my back in. I felt that I felt something clicking, and then I went, oops, that's not good.
And I couldn't. Yoga's body weight, though. Yeah.
I had to ring my boss up. I said, I'm not coming in.
Yeah, I think really with any body weight exercise, though, I think that's a lot of why you'll see that the risk is much lower. Now, I'm a big proponent of strength training, running, all these other things that do have a much higher incidence as well, because I think the benefits outweigh the risks by far. But that's definitely not something for people to be overly concerned about getting into yoga.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think people are getting more educated with yoga now, learning more about yoga and understanding that, like you said, there are some things which are making it, which makes it a bit towards Hinduism. There are some stuff, but if you are, like you said, if you don't want that, you can remove a few of those things, and you can concentrate on the rest of the yoga. And you can still get those benefits, and you can still get that mentally, physically, and you can still help you. I
like to look at it. I always like to appreciate where something came from, right? So understanding some of those roots, whether it's something that you believe in or not, I think is helpful. Just knowing where it came from, and then again, what you're going to maybe internalize and practice may be a slightly different aspect of that.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Yeah, understanding the roots and appreciating where it came from,
Yeah.
and then doing it what suits yourself, and obviously and gives you those maximum benefits and health
Right.
benefits and stuff on there. So uh, for those sports people and the people who are doing it for flexibility,
Mhm.
uh, how long does it take them to? How many classes would they have to do for them to get that flexibility? And
Oh, that is a hard question because it's so dependent on the person, right? I mean,
right,
some people come to class and you're not able to reach your toes yet, which is completely okay.
yeah,
It's just start where you are, and then over time, making small progress towards moving forward. I think something to keep in
yeah,
mind is people who, for example, have full splits. I'm actually not back to them yet, but a lot of times that's something that they did as a child and then have been working on for could be a year or however long in order to get back to it. Same thing with other, handstands are usually pretty cool. That's something I'm
yeah,
personally working on, and I think it typically takes over a year for that to be something that you achieve with very regular practice. So I think going into it with that open mind of I want to progress, but not necessarily having a timeline on it, I think is a great way to approach it so that you have that goal that you're working for. That also sometimes helps you to be consistent because if you keep working at this, you're going to reach that goal. It's just the amount of time is so different for every person based on their background, kind of their natural abilities, and how consistent they are in that practice.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And before we obviously wrap up, or looking at the time, obviously we don't want to over go with the time, but yeah, exactly. And like you said, so people, we'll put the link on there. They can obviously whereabouts can they find you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place. That's where I spend most of my time. So at
Yeah,
Fit Aspire, you'll find me pretty much everywhere. It's very easy. So once you know it's Fit Aspire, that's the same thing on Facebook. You'll also find me there. Same on YouTube. And so those are probably the three main places. But Instagram's definitely where I spend the most time. Shoot me a DM. Love to chat with you and kind of learn about what you're working on, and if yoga is something that you practice really regularly, or if it's something you're kind of dabbling in. Always interesting to kind of hear about different people's perspectives.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. Definitely. And learning about other people's experience in yoga,
Hmm.
and obviously if they want to get tips from yourself, or if they want to know more about your classes, they can do that, and obviously they can go on to uh, the class website at the Mindful. They can
Yep.
they can book it on there as well, which we will put the link on the descriptions as well. So yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, definitely. I think a lot of people will find this useful. Uh, what you've spoken about yoga, uh, because I think yeah, like I said, and you've described it is something which you can do, and it doesn't take too much of a time to do. I
Right.
mean, you do it a few times in a week, and you still,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And think about it as a great way to try something that has been around for a very long time, good balance for other things that you're probably already doing. And then as you get more experience in it, maybe it becomes something that you focus on a bit more over time. But that's completely up to you and your goals and what makes sense in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the classes you provide,
Mhm.
uh, are these like beginning, intermediate, advanced classes, or they start from the beginning?
Yeah, most are all levels classes, which I will
Yeah.
say, even in an all levels class, it's probably best to have a little bit of exposure to yoga first. When I get
Okay.
somebody who is brand new to yoga, it may be best to just take a couple of private lessons with a teacher just so that you feel more comfortable with all the different terms that are being used. I think
Yeah.
in all the classes I teach, I tend to use both English and Sanskrit words. So you're hearing a bit of both, but still, if you've never been to yoga before and someone says, all right, we're going to go to warrior two, what does that mean? Where do I need to put my feet? And we'll cue you through it, but it's a little bit harder in the middle of an
Yeah,
active class to
yeah,
really get it for the very first time. So I think a lot of times just having a lesson or two of private with a teacher can be super helpful, and just kind of overcoming that initial hump. And then it's very easy in classes that I teach. I do lots of different modifications. We typically will start with the most accessible version of a pose, and then offer options to add to it as people have the ability or the desire to make something a little bit more complicated. And I always tell people, just because you can doesn't mean you need to either. So sometimes it's really nice to take, the most accessible expression of a pose, and that's great. There's no need to add more unless you're really feeling like you'd like to. So not better or worse, I guess is what I'll always say in class, just where you are today.
yeah, exactly. Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so do guys, if you are thinking of get in touch with Heather, we'll put the social media links on there, and we put them on the audio episode as well, so you can get in touch with her and get tips on yoga. Or if you want to join a class, the links will be on there, so you can join the yoga class as well. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Heather. I think you've given us a lot of insight there regarding obviously yoga and how you're helping people and how yoga is helping people on a daily basis, and obviously with the health benefits and mentally, physically, how is improving, how it is improving people on there. So
Awesome.
I think you've given a very, very good insight on that. It's been a very, very nice to have you on there. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
coming on.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely. It's been a fun conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.